Hi, I'm Middia Pitkin. I'm a personal trainer, and today we're going to do a Physioball exercise series, and this is an instructional segment. So you can follow along, but I'm not going to be doing full sets. This is more teaching you the exercises, so definitely try them. But we also have another segment where we just go through and do the sets, and that's more for on an ongoing basis once you know what you're doing. So if you haven't exercised before, definitely go online and get a PAR-Q. And if you answer yes to any of those questions, then you should definitely consult with your doctor before exercise. Or if you just think you should see your doctor, then you probably should, if you have any concerns. Err on the side of caution. So this is a Physioball, this thing that I'm sitting on. They're these big overinflated balls, and it's a great exercise aid. There are many, many ways that you can use them, and we're going to go over some of them today. So one of the things that you can do with them is do your warm-up, and you can just do a bouncing warm-up. And we're going to do that at the beginning of the other segment, but the one thing that at one point in that warm-up, I'm going to pivot. When you're pivoting, the thing you want to watch is that your knee stays over your ankle. So it's not this, which is much more of the natural thing to do, but rather this. So that's what you want to be whenever you're doing any of the pivoting stuff, that basically that your shin stays perpendicular to the floor. And other than that, we'll just be waving our arms, bouncing around for the warm-up part. And then after that, ball push-ups. So I'll go over a little bit about ball push-ups. And the thing that is so great about ball push-ups is that they can be really, really modified and nice and easy, or really, really challenging. So and it's just a matter of how far you walk out. So definitely padding under your knees. You could use a pillow. If you have a nice thick carpet, that's probably enough. Or as I have, a folded up yoga mat. So knees on the floor, stomach on the ball. You bring your hands forward. I just realized I should say a little something about sizing of the ball. So ideally, the ball is sized so that when you sit, your thighs are parallel to the floor. So if it's too big, you're going to be here. If it's too small, you're going to be here. But if it's the right size ball, you've got a nice right angle here. So anyway, if your ball is a little bit too big or too small, it's probably not that big a deal, but there are some exercises which will be either made more difficult or made way too easy, so you're like, what's the point if it's the wrong size? So anyway, but it's not really a concern in terms of injuring yourself. Now, where was I? So, ball push-ups. Knees on the padding, stomach on the ball, hands on the floor. So a very modified ball push-up, you might just be walking out this far. So you've got a little bit of weight in your hands. You want to keep your shoulders wide from your ears, so you don't want to be up here. And then you're going to lower down, exhale up. Lower down, exhale up. And then from there, if that feels too easy, just take it a little further forward. Exhale, lower up. And you can keep checking. Now I'm far enough that I need to make sure that my hips go with me. So it's sort of like a seesaw action. And if that's too easy, you go further out even. Whew! And that's getting more challenging. And then when you're done, you walk back and move on to the next exercise, which is hip dips. So hip dips, you have a seat on the ball. You're going to walk out and let the ball roll up your back. So I will just say, people sometimes when they start using the ball, they're nervous about falling off. And I've had many people fall off the ball, and their reaction is always, oh, that's not very far to fall. It's not a big deal. It's not very far to the floor. That said, do whatever you need to do to make yourself feel secure and safe. Some people like to sort of hold on to the ball as they walk out. Some people like to have their hands out to either side to catch them. The important thing is that your weight is basically across your shoulder blades, not on your head, but that you've walked far enough so that you have support for your head. That's where you want to be positioned. And then for hip dips, you drop your hips down and then press up without letting the ball roll back. So the most common way to start this is like this. But rather, you want to lower down and then press straight up. Lower down so the ball is staying in one spot. And you want to think of your sits bones pressing up towards your leg bones. So your sits bones, if you're sitting on a chair and you kind of rock back and forth, there are those, it's like little sort of bones that you can kind of stand on. Those are your sits bones. And when I walk out, now they're aiming down towards the floor, and now they come up towards my legs. Down towards the floor, up towards my legs. So for me, what's comfortable when I don't have my hands to support my head is for my head to come up when I go down. So really, you just do whatever is comfortable. The point of the exercise is this gets hamstrings, back of the thighs, quads, which are the front of the thighs, and glutes, which is the butt. So it's a very good one. But anyway, the next one we have is a ball squat. And we're going to do that over by the wall. So a ball squat is a particularly nice, can be particularly good for certain knee issues and also sometimes with certain ankle issues. Because when you do this, the angles of the joints are very different than a freestanding squat. So the thing that you want to be careful is that you're not on a slippery surface, because your feet need to be much further out than feels safe or comfortable if you're on a slippery surface. And it feels a bit awkward. This is a nice sticky surface. I have no concern about slipping, but it does feel like my feet are awfully far forward. And then you're just going to let the ball roll up your back and roll down your back. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And it's just down and up, down and up. So that's a ball squat. And back over to where we were. So next, we have a very nice exercise for the upper back. And for this exercise, often less is more. That can be the case with a lot of exercises, actually. But rather than going for the larger movement, going for maybe length in a certain place or stabilization, really stabilizing one spot, but I'm kind of blabbing. Anyway, here, so you can either have your hands on your forehead or, depending on your range of motion, your hands behind your head. But if putting your hands behind your head causes you to drop your head forward, definitely hands at your forehead. And then you just you're going to lower down, and I am not thinking up, I'm thinking long. So I'm just trying to lengthen, and I'm thinking the roof of my mouth. So I'm lengthening the roof of my mouth towards the wall and then lowering down. Lengthening roof of my mouth towards the wall. Shoulders away from my ears. You also can hold, lengthen, lengthen, keep lengthening, and release. And that works the support muscles in the spine. And then, to give due attention to the front of the body, since we just worked the back of the body, this one, actually, you can start it seated like this and walk out. I find that easier. Some people find it easier to set themselves up from the floor. You put the ball behind you and then just lean back onto it. This one, it can be a little bit tricky to find the right point, how far forward or backward on the ball you should be. But you want your heels pressing into the floor, and then you use your thumbs right under the base of your skull and your fingertips a little further up your skull to support your head, shoulder blades pulling down your back. You're going to rest back, narrow your abdominals, so pulling everything in, and then just lift your head to like a neutral, and then lower down. Lift and lower down. Lift and lower down. And the trick here is to keep your abdominals narrowed. So basically like you're trying to zip up a tight pair of pants, and then don't release that narrowing. And we just have two more exercises. Well, you know, I wouldn't even call this next one an exercise. This is more of a low back release. So if you're have some tension built up in your low back from exercises or just from life, this is a very nice one. So just knees on the ball, hands out to the sides, And then you just let the ball roll back and forth, and not going very far. Because if you go very far, then you have to work to come back up. That's not the point. The point is basically a low back massage. So just gently rocking back and forth. And then I turn to my side to come up, although I should have turned towards you to come up. But I wanted to check my paper. But rather than popping up forward, that's the safe way to come up. And then this final one is also a stretch, and I think it's a particularly delicious one. So basically, just hanging back over the ball to open up the front body. And you can just play with it. Find, maybe one day you want to be all the way back there. Maybe another day, this is a great stretch. And also arms in different positions, depending on what needs the most stretch. And anytime you're stretching, you find a good spot and then just breathe. Nice deep breaths and allow the stretch to open up. And that's it for the instructional segment. Thanks for joining me.